So today we'll be talking about retail disruption and consumers, and hearing from retailers and producers. So Heather, you've been at Costco since 1985. Mike, your grandfather founded Raley's in 1935. And Bruce, you founded Taylor Farms in 1995. Between the three of you, decades of food industry experience, what has been the single biggest change you've witnessed in the food industry since you started? And I'll start with Heather.
Okay, first I want to make sure everybody can hear me. Is the mic working? No. Okay, can everybody hear me now? Okay. For me, I would say that the single largest change has been the very recent trend towards organics. And organics, everyone thought at first it was going to be a passing trend, and it's become a huge industry initiative and a huge focus for us at Costco, not only in the fresh categories, but throughout our business.
We'll go down the line. Mike?
For us, it was Heather. As a price impact. For the last 20 years, we've been working on dealing with costs and eliminating costs from the system and trying to make our stores more relevant to the consumer. But more recently, it's been the online shopping. It's not measured very well right now by Nielsen, but it's having a significant drain. So Costco takes from us the top tier customer out of our pocket, and Walmart takes the bottom. We're left with the middle. So how are we dealing with that? It's through our own form of disruption, which perhaps we'll get a chance to talk about.
You can talk about it now if you want. I don't want to.
So I believe the system that we have within the supermarket industry has had a major impact on the health of our customers. And so what we have attempted to do in order to be relevant to the ongoing consumers and to drive our own passion within our organization, as we set our purpose out in front of us, we've come up with a purpose. Our mission at Raley's is to improve the health of our customers, to say it in a very succinct way. So why do I say that the industry has affected the health of our customers negatively? It's because we take in millions and millions and millions of dollars from the CPGs to put products on the shelves at the registers and advertise those products. And those products are literally killing our customers over a long period of time. And so what we're doing is we're saying, no, we're going to be driven by health decisions for our customers. You can't change overnight. I'd leave all our customers behind. But fortunately, most of you in this room, like my best friend here, Bruce, are producing products that are very healthy and health-driven. And so what we want to see is more of those products come online and help educate our customers in that direction. That's how we, at a touch point of the consumer, is becoming more relevant to them and how we compete against Costco, who's driven by cost.
Bruce, what about you? Biggest change?
For us, I would say the biggest change for us is literally a consumer rush to convenience. When we started kind of in the packaged salad business, 30 years ago, it represented a tiny share of the market. Now it's a huge share of the market. And it continues to unfold in terms of the level of complexity that it drives. In the old days, you had 8 different packaged salads that were components. People would buy the bag and they'd add other ingredients to it. Now the consumer wants everything, right, in that package, to the point where 5 years ago, salads with dressings weren't growing because people were buying the components. Now they want the dressing in the salad as well. So that's the part that continues to grow. And the challenge that creates, so instead of 8 products now to satisfy the entire consumer group, we've got 200 to satisfy the consumer group. And so you can imagine the complexity that drives in our business. So that's the biggest challenge.
At one of the dinners last night, we were talking about the cognitive dissonance on the parts of consumers. They say one thing, like no GMOs, and then they pour a bunch of ant killer on their picnic. So do you guys listen to what consumers are saying or what they're doing? Because sometimes those two things are at odds.
Well, we had a kind of an interesting learning experience about 5 years ago when one of our kids first was exploring meal kits. And they were doing consumer panel surveys up in the office up in San Francisco. And they asked the consumers, what do you want to do for dinner? And they said, our aspiration is to spend 20 to 30 minutes preparing dinner for our children. And then have a conversation around the dinner table. And so we go, great, let's put together a meal kit that takes 20 or 30 minutes to prepare, and it'll be a home run. Complete dud, right? Didn't work. Because what happens is the consumer gets home and pushes the microwave button because they don't have time. So their aspirations are one thing and the reality is another. So to answer your question, we stopped asking. We just throw shit out there. Sorry, just throw. It's
okay.
Sorry. We throw healthy, fresh food out there and see what works.
Heather,
for us,
it's okay.
that's hard to follow. For us, we both listen to what they say as well as what they're doing. And so for us, I have the great pleasure of talking to members on a daily basis. My phone number is published somewhere for them to call me and talk to me about what's important to them. So we do listen to what they have to say and we speak with them, have that dialogue on a regular basis. But in terms of our buying decisions are made by members, our members voting with their dollars. So what they're purchasing is what's going to determine, the way we're going to direct our business in terms of their buys.
Mike, what about you on a more
So
local
I'm
level?
with Heather on this. We do both. Both are very important. I believe that the leading edge is what they're saying, and the trailing edge is what they're doing. In this industry, you can't sit still. The world's just not going to wait for you, and so you have to constantly be watching the leading edge and be a part of that. So we listen to both ends.
One of the things that we talked about in preparation for this panel was telling consumers the story of the food, because in addition to all the information they want, they also want to know exactly where things are coming from. So how are you doing that? I'll start with Bruce.
What we find is consumers want more transparency. It used to be where you had a branded food company and the brand represented trust, where the consumer trusted you because they'd had a good experience with that brand over years. The new consumer, the younger consumers, want to understand what's behind that brand. So the brand is less important now than the story and the real story behind it. So you have to be careful. You don't want to overstate what you're doing and how you're doing it. You want to be authentic about it, but you also want to be transparent about it. And so you use your websites and your customer communications to do that. So it's a challenge. We've got 250 growers that we're trying to personalize that connection from the grower to the consumer, and it's kind of an ongoing opportunity for us.
Heather, I saw you nodding. What about you guys?
I mean, for us, we spend a lot of time developing our packaging with our partners. So we have a very short window of time in the store in which we can create an image. And that image is really important to communicate everything from where something is grown and any kind of health attributes that we can add to that packaging as well. So I would say the packaging is the most crucial piece to educate. And then we also use social media, websites, our partners' websites, etc.
So in the 2 weeks since we first communicated about this panel, Amazon announced its intention to buy Whole Foods. Blue Apron IPO'd a little bit ago. Last I checked, it was around $10.50 for anyone who cares. What do these big changes tell you about what consumers want and the state of the industry, if anything? Mike?
That it's confusing and
Sell.
uncertainty. And it makes it very, very interesting, to say the least. There's a lot of changes going on. The Amazon acquisition of Whole Foods didn't totally surprise me. To me, it validated the direction we're heading. that the consumer is more interested in healthy food products and knowledge. So it fits. But Bruce and I were talking in the green room. I was just changing an Amazon subscription order back there that's going to be shipped. And I explained to him, for Pete's sakes, I'm almost buying more, if not more, on Amazon than I am in my own company. You know, and so that's major change that we're dealing with, and we've got to figure this out over the long haul.
That question was not on our list up I'm not really going to say much about that topic other than it is an interesting time. It's a very interesting time, and for us, brick and mortar retail is hard business, and I'm very curious to see how things will sort out.
Yeah, for us, it's really a continuation of the trend of fresh food in more places. I mean, if you go to any gas station today, you see fresh food, right? You walk into the Walgreens drugstore today and you see a wall of fresh food. And so, again, that adds complexity, and the challenge is that, if you sell a program to Michael at Rayleigh's, and they do a great job in their deli, and so their stores are the highest selling stores that we have on a per store basis, then a Target sees the same assortment and says, oh gosh, we want that too, all across the country. And it's like the velocity of Target is de minimis. I hope no one's here from Target. I just lost that account. Just gave that one up too. So the desire for the variety is there, but the ability to buy enough to make it worthwhile for anybody is not there. And so that's part of the ongoing challenge. As you have more points of distribution, you have less velocity at each point, and each point becomes more difficult to manage.
I think we were talking a little bit about, I think I'm grocer's worst nightmare because I go to CVS when I pick up my allergy medication, and I buy my cereal too. So millennials are making your lives harder as well. Heather, I think we talked about this on the phone. How are you responding specifically to my generation?
I think the millennial generation is a fantastic generation. I have two of them at home. I would say that they're very discerning in their purchases. They're very well educated, and they're looking for a value as well as some high-level convenience as well. And so what I would say is eventually all types of retail will have the benefit of the millennial generation. They may be starting in one area now, like a CVS where you can buy a single box of cereal, but eventually you're going to need more than just cereal.
We'll see.
And so, we're very optimistic about the millennial generation and their shopping habits, and we feel like they will be shoppers at Costco.
So that's the national perspective. Mike, you have a little bit more of a local perspective. Do millennials concern you quite as much, or is the local value of the brand helping?
They confuse me from two sides. One, the workforce side, and two, the consumer side. They're like, I don't understand you, particularly from the workforce side, as I'm sure many of you have experienced in this room. The way we're dealing with it is by listening and learning within the workforce. They love purpose, and since we're a purpose-driven company, they identify with that, and we're attracting more millennials into our organization as we permeate our purpose out into the community. On the consumer side, it's principally through social media. We talk to them. We have an extensive social media outreach, and that's how we try and become relevant to the millennials, so that we're in their sphere of thinking when they make choices for shopping.
Yeah, they definitely pay attention to their food. You pay attention to what you eat, right? I mean, you care about what's in it. You care about the wholesomeness of it. And so it's changing. Well, let me also add that there's certain perceptions they have. The previous panelists talk about GMOs and the scientific validation behind GMOs, and yet many millennials don't trust GMOs. So they have perceptions that I would say might be different from reality. And so that is a challenge in terms of how we put products together. But it is definitely pushing us and the industry kind of where you're going, Michael, which is more healthy, natural, clean label products. And I'll give you an example. One of Back in New Jersey, we service Wawa. We do all their food. That's a convenience store back there.
It's the best. I'm from Philly. You got to go to Wawa.
And in spite of our mission statement saying that we make salads and healthy, fresh foods, Wawa wanted us to introduce what they call the Dirt Cup. And the Dirt Cup was this awesome dessert that was chocolate pudding, Oreo cookie crumbled in a container on top, and covered with whipped cream. Right, so it didn't really fit our mission statement of healthy, fresh food, but the sales went through the roof, right? So people in Philadelphia love the Dirt Cup.
We did.
But it peaked about 3 years ago, and over time, people started paying more attention to what was in the Dirt Cup, and we just discontinued it last week, I'm sorry to tell you. And
okay.
Sorry for me too, because now I can't find it. But that's really a result of the changing tastes and the sophistication, the change in sophistication in the consumer.
Now, earlier, Mike, you said that Costco is creating some changes for you, but it's not all competition up here. We were talking about collaboration and the importance of partnerships in this brave new world. And I believe there was a feta cheese story that Heather and Bruce were talking about. I think Costco has turned Taylor Farms into one of the biggest importers of feta cheese.
Yeah, I think so. Maybe the only one. So we love to partner with our partners in terms of developing new products. And so one of the products we developed recently with Costco was what we call a Mediterranean chopped salad. And it's an organic Mediterranean chopped salad, which you'd think wouldn't be all that difficult. But the problem is there's a lot of organic spring mix and a lot of organic spinach out there, but there's not a lot of organic other components. And you notice there's a big price disparity there. And so Heather, we developed this product with Heather and her team, and we roll it out to, I don't know how many warehouses, and it just takes off, right? It just, sales explode, and so Heather calls and says, well, I want to double what we committed. And our guys call back, hey, that'd be great, but we can't find any more organic feta cheese in the world. And so some of these new tastes create some supply chain challenges. Now, it's a short-term challenge, right? I can guarantee you that entrepreneurs somewhere will figure out how to make more feta cheese. And at least they'll tell us it's organic. I'm sure it'll be organic, but it'll be organic.
That whole conversation was under the topic of what keeps us up at night. And it was organic feta cheese that keeps Bruce up at night. And for me, it's having enough of whatever it is that's big and everybody wants to buy. So right now, this week, it's watermelon. Everybody wants watermelon. And of course, there's very few watermelon on the West Coast. And so it's definitely keeping me up at night just to try to find enough. And so this wonderful salad we developed with Taylor is a huge success. Absolutely double what we expected it to be, and now we're trying to keep up. So
what does that partnership, that one experience, tell you about the importance of collaboration in 2017?
You know, for us, partnership is such an important part of our business. We consider our suppliers to be our partners. We spend a lot of time educating them on our business and working together with them to make sure we understand their side of the business so that we can, be successful together on both sides. And I think that collaboration is a must, and it is definitely one of the keys to our success.
So you said watermelon's keeping you up at night. Mike, what's keeping you up at night?
Sounds like millennials.
Well, nothing keeps me up at night. I sleep pretty good, but it reminds me of, if I could put you on the spot, last year we were at a ag tech event and Bruce was on the stage speaking, and he said, it's not too far in the future, I think this was you, when you will order your produce or your berries online and it will be picked by a robot that day and in your home the next. And I'm thinking, Bruce, where am I in that equation? And so I'm asking our organization, should we be closer to the point of production? And so we're going to have to figure out how to deal with this disruption over the next 20 years. And I think it will move us closer to the point of production in some way.
You talk about partnership with Michael and his company. We actually have people that are in his office, the office there. And so we're rolling out, in this year, we'll roll out 80 new deli items with Raley's. And so you can imagine the complexity with that 80 items has about 240 raw ingredients to go with it, that we have to go do supplier approvals based on the new FSMA laws. So you can imagine the complexity. So that's why that's the depth of the partnership. It can't be a transactional world anymore. It's got to be a relationship world, because there's so much you have to do to prepare to do business with each other and then maintain and help build each other's business. And that's how we're doing it going forward.
So Heather, watermelon keeps you up at night. What development in either food or the retail business as a whole most excites you about the future? What do you want to be talking about on this stage 1 year from now?
The development I think that is most exciting and fresh right now is just the continuing demand for healthy, fresh products. And I'm ever encouraged by consumers' trends around healthy eating. And the more people educate themselves on that, I think it's great. And so, again, it's just a trend for more and better and fresher products.
Mike, what about you?
I agree. I think the future belongs to those who are bold. And I think it's a wide open field for being bold and really helping your customers make better health choices. And that's where that excites me a lot.
Yeah, for me, the challenge is probably more around, as a producer, is more around mass customization. I'll tell you a story. There's a company, a startup called Juicero. I'm not sure if you're familiar with that. They have the $800 machine that takes this fresh produce puck and presses it into a cold pressed juice. I think they got some press because a human could do the same thing for no money. But we had a meeting with the founder, and the founder, I'll just give you a color on him. He's a fellow from New York and started this organic grocery store chain there, and he was a vegan. And his introduction was that, well, he's a vegan, and we started talking about milk, and he characterized milk as bovine slime. I'm going, oh, this is going to be a great meeting here. And then he proceeds to ask me what I can do for him. I go, boy, this is good. He's in my office. Let me see. You're the one that wanted the meeting. Anyway, so Juicero, they wanted us to make these pucks for them, because we're in the fresh food business, so we're going to buy the fruits and vegetables and make these pucks. And I said, great, so we're going to put machinery in place, and it's going to make so many thousands of pucks a minute, yada, yada. He goes, great. I said, so what's your long-term plan? He says, well, we want to get a couple rolled out. I said, well, how many is a couple? Because it matters how many SKUs you have, right? He said, we'll probably start with 8 or 10. I go, great, okay, we can do that. That's probably a couple of machines. We can put those somewhere, a couple of places in the country. I said, what's your long-term vision? He says, well, my long-term vision is that everyone gets to have their own recipe. And I said, I think we're done. I'm the wrong guy. But the challenge is that's what the consumer wants. I mean, eventually that's what you want, your own recipe and your puck that you're going to squeeze for your juice blend, right? And so the challenge is how do we on a mass scale create that capability? And we're not there yet. We're not even close. But that's one of the kind of fun challenges we work for.
I think we have a few minutes for questions. So there's one microphone up here and one around here. Does anyone have any queries for our esteemed panelists? There's one in the back.
Thank you. I had a question for Rayleigh's. You had indicated when you heard the commentary that someday raspberries are going to be picked by a robot and delivered to the consumer. Where does Rayleigh's fall? And you had said you think the answer is to get closer to production. Can you explain what you mean by that? Why is that your answer?
Because production's always going to be there. It's at the beginning of the supply chain. And if we can move ourselves a little bit closer, whatever happens with brick and mortar or retail or online, we're still in that chain. The other reason why that I thought it would be worth exploring is because we're then diversifying our asset base a little bit more and minimizing the risk.
And are there certain things that you're doing getting closer to production?
No, we're at the exploratory phase at this point right now. I guess a third reason would be because being a purpose-driven company, we want to affect our mission, and we can affect that mission of healthier, cleaner, more sustainable production of products if we're a little bit closer to the point of production.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Oh, there's one there and.
Hi, I'm Patrick Kavanaugh with California Ag Today Radio. Hi, Bruce, this is for you. We are always concerned about labor. It's never going to get greater. It's going to be less and less as we go through the future. What is Taylor Farms doing and thinking about in terms of labor? It's hard for robots to pick lettuce. I know there's some automatic things happening, but talk about that. What is the future like?
The labor challenge is really twofold. One, today there's a shortage of labor, and the folks we have in the fields are getting older, and the reality is that the second generation of immigrants don't want those jobs. So it's not a shortage of labor, there's no labor going forward. In other words, no one's going to be available to pick lettuce. That's a tough, demanding job. And so the challenge for us, and that's why this is so exciting to have this event here, challenge for us is to automate. And so we can automate, we've now automated romaine harvesting, spinach harvesting, spring mix harvesting, celery harvesting, cabbage harvesting. We're going to figure out lettuce. Lettuce grows very close to the ground, so we're either trying to grow a light bulb shaped lettuce to get it off the ground, so the seed company's working on that, or we're going to figure out a way for a robotic arm, and we're invested in soft robotics to help do this. A robotic arm's going to figure out how to find that head of lettuce and pick it. So to answer your question, we're going to try to figure out how to run these plants with fewer folks who are better trained, they're engineers, they're mechanics, better trained folks, so they're better jobs for the people of the future, because that's really what you want for our state and for our country. And so we're going to transform really the agricultural workforce from a very difficult, unpleasant job to a much more sophisticated job. That's the goal.
There was a hand over here. I don't know if the mic is close. It's a maze out there.
This is to follow up on the Juicero experience you had. Meanwhile, Whole Foods has implemented many Juicero juice bars in their Southern California stores because the consumers want a healthy experience while they're shopping, and yet it's very high labor costs to do it manually because of all the mess and the amount of people and time it takes. And that seems like a really good solution in terms of helping a product kind of get through its early growth hurdles and popularize it. And so I'm just interested because Whole Foods obviously is endorsing this and wanting it to be part of the future and part of the toolkit that we have to enjoy fresh food, and yet you don't seem to agree with that.
No, I completely agree with the product and Whole Foods doing that. The challenge I mentioned is that if their long-term goal as a company is to personalize your puck, that we as a company weren't prepared to do that on any kind of efficient or economical basis. That's the point I was making. So
I guess I would just suggest that, I'm a venture capitalist. I work with these companies all the time, including Juicero. The founders often have very aspirational views that maybe don't always match reality. So I think you have to have kind of a translation factor when you talk to those folks.
Yeah, I agree.
I think we have time for one more. Sorry, Chloe. Over here.
I'm getting there. Hold on.
What's your prediction on Blue Apron while we have a moment here?
Thanks, Paul.
I was talking a little bit about this last night. I'm one of the ones who doesn't fully understand what the future holds, because I think once you use the product and learn the recipes, I think it's beneficial for people who are learning how to cook. I'm not as clear on how many families are using it as a grocery replacement, so I don't want to say bearish, but not 100% bullish. What about you guys?
Coming from a guy that shorted Amazon and fortunately ran out of money quickly, I think it's a tube shot, which means I don't see a future there for the company. So.
I think Blue Apron's great for retail for the exact reason that you mentioned. It introduces people to cooking, which is a wonderful thing, but eventually they come into us to do some shopping.
Which is exactly what I've been doing.
Yeah, thank you. Greg Maher with Greenline Farming, and wonderful panel here, really enjoying it. This question also is for Bruce. So in terms of, we've heard yesterday about greenhouse farming, and we spoke a little bit about millennials and the farm to table, the local farming. How does that impact your business? Are you planning for that?
Great question. We are looking at it very carefully. We believe we need to get into it. Someone told me yesterday that, I can't remember the financial source, one of the bankers here said that he'd already been approached by 200 different groups looking to raise money to build greenhouse and indoor farms. And so I'm thinking, well, that doesn't sound like much fun to compete with 200 other folks. So either we have to be first mover and scare everybody else out, which we like to do that, or wait and pick up low-cost greenhouse assets 2 years from now.
Well, we are out of time, so on that note, thank you to everyone up here. Thank you to all of you.
Thank you.